space boatloads of money, long development and early access gameplay. How done really is Star Citizen? Now, rather than my typically drive-by Latvian cynical and sarcastic commentary, I thought to reach out to my fellow creators on the other side of the space sim fence and ask them this very same question. Today I'm interested to see what my peers who have followed this project quite a lot more have to say. For context purposes, in case you haven't forgotten or never heard of this thing called Star Citizen, see, back in 2012, Chris Roberts announced a spaceship flying video game, in fact 2 of them, that were the modern equivalent of the old space sim games, you know, the space shooties, trading and simulation that goes along with it. The crowdfunding was so successful that today this project has reached nearly $500 million in funding, establishing itself as the largest game-related project funded. And starting from 2014, in one form or another, backers would have a public access to quote-unquote playable version of the multiplayer portion, which is aptly named Star Citizen, while Squadron 42, the star-studded acted single-player campaign, has been developing alongside of it, mostly behind closed doors, with far less information or public updates. So there, you see, I can be objective. But jokes aside, let's get into the meat of the topic. So, do you think Star Citizen is done?
Oh yeah, no, for sure, it's totally done. No, I'm kidding.
Definitely not.
Definitely no.
No, never.
No, not at all, man.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No.
I'm Dig That 32. I do Star Citizen content. I'm that YouTuber guy. That's all I got to say about that.
So, I'm the Eradicator. I've been creating content on YouTube since 2018, and I'm an original backer. I backed in October of 2012, so it's been a while already.
Hi, my name is Avenger1. I'm a Star Citizen content creator, and I do mostly PvP content.
Hello everyone, it's the Noobifier. In 2014, I heard about the project. As part of being a soldier, part of our professional development is to teach, instruct, guide, and to pass on our experience. I saw Star Citizen as a very confusing topic that could be explained in short, clean videos, and I saw YouTube as a way to learn Adobe Premiere.
My name is Execute. I'm a content creator for Star Citizen. My channel is Info Runners. I stream once a week, and we do a show at least once a week as well. We focus on deep diving into many different topics. We'd like to help people with their ships and fleets. I think that's about it.
Oh, my name is Space Tomato. I've been a part of Star Citizen. I backed in 2014 and really just started to cover it as a content creator a couple years ago in late 2019.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Failure to Report, and for those who don't know me, I've been a Star Citizen backer since 2013 and a Star Citizen project commentator since sometime around 2015. On my channel, I mostly follow the progress of the project's development and create videos discussing my thoughts, the project's accomplishments, and more often than not, the project's shortcomings.
Hi guys, I'm Morphologist. I am a content creator who does mostly content on Star Citizen, but I still cover other space games, so you can find me on YouTube and on Twitch. I also have some social media stuff that you can follow. My shtick, I suppose you could say, is that I work professionally in the field of architecture. I work as an architect, and so I like to kind of bring that into my videos.
Too much. I think that kind of covers it, doesn't it?
At this point, I've been part of Star Citizen's project for the entire length of it, so I think I'm at about 1,000.
$500 on myself since like 2014-ish time when I first pledged, but in the last 2 years since I started creating, I've actually probably spent closer to $1,000.
Probably spent around $8,900. I don't know the exact amount. I haven't checked my wallet in a while.
So personally, I should be at about $2,500. But with the giveaways, I am nearing right now. I checked before the interview here. I am at $9,700. So almost 10,000. The F8 is almost there. Yeah.
Too much, man. Definitely too much. I think out of pocket 800, which probably means 1,000. I don't really know because I got a lot of very cool supporters who've donated a bunch of money that we've used to do some giveaways in the game.
Well, since TheYamiks has asked me so politely if I would disclose how much I've sunk into the project, and since I'm no longer hiding it from my significant other, Over the nearly 10 years that I've been a backer of Star Citizen, I've spent just under $31,000.
My personal contribution is actually below $165. I am, however, triple legatus due to many years of ship giveaways. I have referral ships and all kinds of other stuff, so I don't need to spend my own money. And at $500 million, whatever I give Chris isn't going to matter.
Well then, how much would you say Star Citizen has accomplished?
It will never be done. And I would say that there's a difference between accomplished and finished. The developers have actually accomplished 300% more than the original Kickstarter, but the developers have finished what I would estimate to be about 10% of what we were told. And as I said, it won't ever be done.
Oh, we're far from it. 15% maybe?
Oh, that's a tough one to say. I think it's maybe around 10 to 20, to be honest. 10 to 20% done.
I want to say it feels around maybe 30 to 40%.
Hard to say, man, because it's snowballing. It's not your typical development process, but I mean, if I just had to throw a number on it, let's say somewhere around 45%.
It's really unfortunate that we're still asking these kind of questions, TheYamiks, because in the earlier years, there were some really talented backers in the project who used to keep very detailed graphics and trackers for how far along the project was coming. But since this project is now a decade old and still no end anywhere in sight, you can kind of imagine that many of those people have moved on or passed on at this point. Who knows? So, to answer your question though, I think we're sitting somewhere near 30% complete for Star Citizen.
I think that's hard to answer because there's a few moving parts. I think you've obviously got two big ones. You've got Star Citizen and you've got Squadron 42. I do think we are rounding the corner on Squadron 42. I think we'll probably see release hopefully at the end of next year. So you asked me how done I think Star Citizen is. I think it's very little. As for Squadron 42, as I said, I think we're kind of rounding the corner. So it's a two-part question.
I think that we're still very far from it. We have the flight model is not even final yet. You know, when we are flying our ships, it's probably not the way it's going to be flown in 4 or 5 years from now. Again, you know, it really depends on what Cloud Imperial game developers are going to be calling what a minimal viable product is. That's actually something that Chris Roberts did say. I think that was in 2019 CitizenCon, if I'm correct. That's when they will be releasing Star Citizen version 1.0 when they believe that they will have a minimal viable product. But is that going to be finished? Probably not.
It's important to remember that Star Citizen has been in development for 10 years, active development, not Chris and his friends talking about wanting to make the game. There are videos on YouTube of Chris and the founding team talking about already working on Star Citizen back in 2010. Were they being honest? Probably not. But since they publicly stated it as such, it's the date those of us not double fist chugging the Kool-Aid often use. But of the few gameplay loops they have, they're all still very, very deep in infancy, with no real depth or anything to make Star Citizen stand on its own feet, much less stand out in the gaming industry.
Well, if we take Battlefield as a good marker, that's probably not the best.
Oh god!
So, look, we're at about 40% in terms of core tech and systems online. You know what I mean? It's people love to sling stuff at CIG and stuff, and I get it. I mean, for a lot of times and for a lot of years, they've made some mistakes, right? But from my point of view, it's like we've got this system online called object container streaming that got put in, and that was going to help the game basically stream objects into the player's universe, But if you look at what the game is actually starting to become, if you actually play the game on a daily basis and you actually get into it, it's exciting, man. I mean, I'm very excited for it.
For you to consider Star Citizen done, what is still missing?
Everything that I mentioned before. Everything I just mentioned, that's what we need.
Everything. Well,
all the gameplay. It's missing almost everything, because as I said, it's an overflow. If you when people kind of ask me what can I play in Star Citizen at the moment, I almost call it a glorified tech demo, because at the moment you basically got basic combat, you've got basic combat delivery missions, basic mining, and we're about to have basic salvage, and cargo is going to go up a step because they've been working on Squadron 42. This and server meshing is holding all this stuff back that they have made. 142 will come out, and Star Citizen will then get more people working on it. We're about to round the corner of it really starting to come out and be what we want it to be. But at the moment, a lot of people look at it and go, well, it's taken them 10 years to get to where they're at with Star Citizen, but what they don't realize is it's they've really been working on Squadron 42 this whole time.
The things that I consider that are still missing are implementing a seemingly impossible global mesh server, quanta, subsumption, NPC crew, functional law, reputation, piracy, bounty, jump.
It's to be more specific, it's missing a lot of gameplay loops that would work together. It's missing more space to explore. It's missing basic tools for organizations to be able to work together. Like there's no guild system in the game, so there's no guild coffer. I don't know. I mean, the way that they're working on this game, it seems like they're just going to keep going because there's so much to do.
Reputation, piracy, bounty, jump points, exploration, fuel collection, refinery mechanics, science, farming.
I mean, the server stuff for sure. A completed single player campaign, and a persistent universe that is not in an alpha state. In the sense that, like, if I lose a ship, it's gone. You know what I mean? Like, there's no that we're gonna test everything. I mean, there's too much to be finished for to pick one thing. You know, because it all kind of goes together. You can't have bounty hunting if you don't have good trading. You can't have good trading. You can't have good piracy, and so on and so forth.
Data running, hacking, breaching, salvage, medical, repair, VIP mechanics, physicalized damage, physicalized components.
Definitely my voice. I mean, it's not done until I'm in there in some shape or form, you know.
Fair point. Absolutely. I'd love that.
I don't think there's a particular thing where I can say, you know, once it has this, it's done. There's some things that I want, but I don't think there's a certain feature. I could say it's done now. If it was $45 and they said this is all we got, there's no more development on it, fine. I'll pay my $45. That's done. We're good.
Yeah, like a minimal viable Star Citizen, I think depends a lot on the connectivity of the players, because they want it to be an MMO, right? We need server meshing there to make sure that players can actually be around and interact with each other universally. We need
fire and fire propagation, firefighting, player-owned land, player-owned habitations, player-created...
Life. Yeah, for sure my answer would be life. Star Citizen is a barren wasteland for anyone who wants more than just ganking randoms and taking screenshots or talking about their dreams of the game that's going to come to fellow backers.
From these features you mentioned, how long do you think Star Citizen will take to finish these features for you to consider it being full game?
I like that question. Okay, here's the real answer. It's going to take 20 years.
Oh, man. If I had to guess at a time frame for Cloud Imperium to finish the core gameplay loops and have the game feel like it wasn't just the leftovers from the heat death of the universe, I'd say we're probably easily looking at 5 to 10 years for a minimally viable product.
I would say 4 years minimum, if that. A lot of these things are in a basic form, but they really need a lot of work. And I'm hoping that after we see some of these back-end tech features that have been taking up engineers' time, we can start to see more of the design come out surrounding these gameplay activities.
I think it's going to be over 10 years before insurance starts counting down and before we're done with the wipes. But that doesn't mean the game isn't launched. It just means that it'll never be completed based on what we were sold.
But in those years, we're going to have a really great game to play. I can already tell. I can hear people's heads exploding. 20 years? What are you talking about? But hear me out. If you have what we have now, it's taken from 0 to almost 10 years, right? From the next 5 years, the Cortex systems will be finished. The Squadron 42 campaign will come out, hopefully, and we're going to start moving. Now, the game that we currently have right now to play is actually a lot of fun. As systems come online, that game gets better and better and better. We'll probably go into beta within the next 5 years, hopefully. But for everything to be finished, like they originally set out for, all the systems, everything, you're looking at 20 years.
With the features that I'm looking for, which is my voice, man, who knows? But I don't know until like the major features that we're all looking for that we've most of us have on our mind right now today. I wouldn't put it past it being another couple years.
We're going to be talking here about the minimal viable product here, and not necessarily everything that I think should be in the game. For the minimal viable product, so we need the full persistence, which is coming soon. We need server meshing, which is coming with 4.0, hopefully early next year. So if the minimal viable product that they're aiming for seems to be having the sentence system, Pyro, maybe Nix, plus full persistence and the professions that we have, which include, combat, bounty hunting, and mining, if that is the minimal viable product that they're aiming for, to then have a version 1.0 and then build upon that version 1.0, then I believe that probably we should be eyeing at a time frame of about 2 years.
Well, honestly, I think that considering that their focus is primarily on Squadron 42, and the last interview that was done with somebody at that studio who talked about a date said 2 years from now, and that was a month ago, and they're always optimistic. After Squadron 42, I still think it's going to take them 4 more years working on Star Citizen to get most of the stuff that I would consider to be a finished game.
Do I think Star Citizen's further away than Squadron 42? Absolutely. I actually do agree with what the developers have said, as in it will never be finished. It will be a never-ending, expanding MMO. But in terms of what was promised and the gameplay and what some people call feature creep, I think that'll come a lot quicker than most people realize once the foundational pieces are there. Because when you look at a single-player game, it needs a lot of levels and assets and stuff like that. They've spent all this time building tools so they can roll out, Well, after Squadron 42 releases, I think it would be a couple of years, and as it rolls out, more and more people will jump on board as it fills out. So I think the real linchpin at the moment is Squadron 42.
Now, what about the most finished part of Star Citizen? What is it and why?
Probably the planet tech and I guess you could say persistent universe simulation on a gross scale.
Funnily enough, probably not the most important thing for a space sim, but I think the planet tech is really what they've gotten to be the furthest along. After that, I think mining.
I would say mining, perhaps, because they've been working a lot.
I probably have to say mining. Mining is a really fleshed out game loop. That's not to say it's done. It's a nice closed loop as it is right now, but it's not finished. There's a lot more that's going to come into the game.
Squadron 42.
Just because you don't see a lot of it. Okay, fair enough.
Well, it's the iceberg, isn't it? They're clearly they've even said as of about 6 months ago, they said they're stopping transferring everything over to Star Citizen so they can focus on Squadron 42, and I think that's all good news. And everything I see, they are rounding the corner and starting to get to the end of Squadron 42, and I'm hoping and praying that it's the end of next year and not the year after that, because if it's the year after that, so many people I know that are getting burnt out, man. It's just it is taking a very long time.
I think that the flight mechanics are 80% to 90% there. I think they're mostly there because they're required for Squadron 42, a single-player campaign.
Yes, finally, an easy question. Combat. It's rough, horribly unbalanced, and constantly in flux, but it's the easiest thing for Cloud Imperium to add to the game, and it's the big money maker. Star Citizen lives off selling power or the perception of buying power, so it makes sense that the majority of the flyable and functioning chips in Star Citizen are all various sizes of space clubs to beat each other with.
The most finished part of Star Citizen is the ship store. That ship store funds the project, and it's the only complete game loop.
Being a longer time observer and a content creator, considering the time it has taken, what would you say is the biggest issue for the project?
Dependencies seem to be what slows it down the most. It happens with a lot of different things where they come up with an idea for something, they create the design, it gets signed off on, but there are so many other things that still depend on it, or that it depends on, that it gets slowed down and disjointed and thrown around in the backlog.
Oh man, that's an incredibly hard question to answer. I don't think there is one specific thing that's quagmired Star Citizen. Their engine choice would be an obvious candidate, but I would also say the management.
I think they've kind of restarted development a few times because they got more money. So the original concept was 21 million. That obviously got blown way out.
Core tech.
So my biggest fear for Star Citizen is that we are completing a legacy game as technology exceeds the development speed. Star Citizen runs the risk of being invalidated as we wait for it. There's no game like it and it's unique. However, eventually and maybe even soon, something new might come along and invalidate it. Also, regardless of the scope and budget, it'll always be an indie game. The proposed completed game is far too thick and far too brutal, so it will peak, and eventually most of the player base might choose to play something else, a little bit more casual.
core tech because you have 400, 500 artists working on environment, detail, and all that stuff. And you've got a bunch of guys, like maybe a handful, working on the really hard stuff, like the really heavy lifting. It's hard enough doing networking as it is with a finished game. Dice, I'm looking at you. So in terms of the biggest problem, it's like keeping people happy in an environment where we're trying to build a game at the same time, keep it fun and entertaining.
It's a good one. Being the first to do something, especially in the unorthodox way that they're doing things, has a lot of problems built into it. I think one of the main things right now for a lot of people is communication.
The biggest issue with the project for me right now is the lack of clarity on how much time and effort and money and resources are being poured into Squadron 42 and how much that is affecting their ability to work on Star Citizen.
My issue, I would like to have more official communications from the devs, what's going on. I want to have better communication. I want to know what's going on with Theaters of War, for example. Also, sometimes I think that the communication with the community is a little bit out of touch as well. I think that we all remember the roadmap, what I call the roadmap debacle, where basically we were told it was our fault.
Oh, God.
Yeah, right?
Now, let's say you have a chance to whisper in the ear of CIG. Which feature, aspect, or detail of the project would you encourage them to improve or make first?
Oh, man, doubleheader with the tough question. I don't know that there's a singular feature I could whisper softly into Chris's ear to improve the project, but if my answer can be an aspect of the game, the fun factor. Yeah, if I could ask Chris to do anything, it would be to remember that this is a game. It's not a simulator. It will never be a simulator, unless he wants all of maybe 700 people to play it at launch. So please, Chris, try to focus on the game being fun and not a miserable, boring slog. That would be my sweet little nothing that I would whisper in his ear.
Definitely the new player and interaction experiences. I'm talking augmented reality markers, overlays on objects that you can interact with, highlights on city street signs, because they have all the stuff showing you where to go in real life, but we need something that draws your attention to it, that reminds you that, hey, you're playing a new game. This is how this game works. And I think both veterans and new players could use that in different areas. That would be huge in improving the experience of playing the game.
I would love for them to do more stuff with org mechanics to allow for people to have more tools to work together. So that at least while we wait for more than one star system and more mechanics that, we can work together and do some stuff together. I don't know. I think that could be cool.
You know what? Leisure stuff, man. There's all kind of stuff to do other than just engage in the normal loops. And right now with Star Citizen, a bunch of us, we've been playing for a few hours and then we find ourselves like, well, what do you want to do next? I don't know what you want to do next. Now, if we had Grim Hex open, it could go bet on some ship races or do a little gambling. I mean, you play with the casino games and stuff like that. It would put some legs on people's engagement with the game. And if they could put that in, your boy Dig would be quite happy. So yeah, get on that CIG.
Piracy. Piracy is, I think, the next big step for them. Pulling each other over and stealing the cargo from inside each other's containers and making money off it like it's actually lucrative to do. And there's a risk/reward ratio to it, which will then spike people to bring security, which will improve PvP. Like that dynamic itself, I think will have a big impact.
If I could whisper anything into the ear of the developers, it will be nothing. It's an alpha. There's nothing that I need from the developers other than what they're doing, but maybe more of it and quicker.
I think for me, it's just how hush-hush they are on Squadron 42. I actually think they can share some of it, just not story-related stuff.
Communication?
Yeah, I think for me, like they really locked it down as of 2017.
Oh, what happened to the passenger missions? We saw them last year in Citizen Con. They were on the roadmap and they have completely disappeared. We are not even talking about those in the monthly reports anymore. That's what I was talking about in answering the previous question. Is I want to be more informed about what's going on, and I think that taxi missions or transport missions are a perfect example of that.
Now, what about that Squadron 42?
I think it's going to be worth the wait.
It's funny, man. I don't know. I'm a Star Citizen content creator. I pay no attention to Squadron 42. It's something that I'll be happy to hear nothing about until I'm actually sitting here playing the game. It looks cool. I'm happy that they shifted priorities to get that knocked out so we can get on there.
I can't wait. I just want to get my hands on it and play it again and again. I love single player campaigns. I am really hyped about the idea of experiencing a Chris Roberts single player narrative that's actually modern, not having to rely on the old Wing Commander games. I don't mind Squadron 42 taking most of development resources because in the end we benefit from those in the PU.
I remember a couple of years ago, I forget the guy's name. He's the leader of Frankfurt. The Viking guy. God, I always forget his name. And there's 5 people in the comments typing his name right now. But he literally said they were going to show off more of Squadron 42, and they never did. I just don't think they should be scared to show some of it. The last time we saw it was the vertical slice, and that was like 4 years ago now.
I almost want to call it a head scratcher. It's more of like a head beat my head against the desker. I wish they wouldn't be so hesitant to talk about Squadron. I understand that they are trying to keep their heads down and just make the game, but it's indicative of a problem they have with Star Citizen where they don't say things when they should. They need to say more about Squadron and stop giving us the excuse of no spoilers.
Honestly, I'm conflicted on Squadron 42 because on one hand, I understand the desire to work on Squadron 42 and get it out, put all your resources into it. I understand why it's taking so many resources away from Star Citizen's development. It's because it's been a really long time. They've missed a lot of release dates and they need to get the game out to prove that they can produce a minimum viable product. And I think that if they were to do that, it'll restore some confidence in CIG. It'll dispel a lot of naysayers who say that they're just taking money and sitting on it and they're never going to release anything. I think it's only beneficial for them to release it. And then the other facet of that is if Squadron 42 ends up actually being good, which I really do hope it will be, it could actually increase the amount of backers who get into the project.
Oh man, Squadron 42 is a very, very divisive topic in the Backerlands. I personally don't care about Squadron 42 anymore. I was interested when it was first pitched as a sort of self-contained, story-driven slice of Star Citizen's universe with drop-in, drop-out co-op so you could play it with friends. But years ago, CIG said the co-op wasn't coming anymore, and as they have shown off Squadron 42, it looks more and more like it's just a on-the-rails theme park ride, and I just have zero interest in sitting through what will undoubtedly be another Chris Roberts Roman-themed Wing Commander story in a new dress. I can easily see how all these years of having the manpower and focus on Squadron 42 feels like a slight to people who are backing and buying ships to support Star Citizen's development, when those backers care nothing about Chris Roberts' excuse to brush elbows with Hollywood again after being ridden out of town when his Hollywood dreams fell apart. Anyone who thinks Chris is going to wrap up the first iteration of his story masterpiece and then focus on Star Citizen exclusively for half a decade or so is dreaming. All those resources, manpower, and money Squadron is currently consuming are just going to roll right into the next episode once the first one is finished.
Squadron is hindering the release of the PU. It will be released, it will be played, and then within a month, we'll be back to waiting for the PU. Squadron 42 was going to release as a simple single-player game, but as the PU expanded, because the PU is paying for it, and because the PU is the basis for the tech for Squadron 42, we ended up with a flight model, planet tech, outposts, caves, gas, water. If it releases perfect, it will be streamed for a month or two, and then things will go back to normal. Only the most hardcore gamer will play that game over and over again, just like Wing Commander. Thanks very much for your time. The questions were challenging, and I had a good time doing it.
And there you go. Big thanks, of course, to all the creators who participated and took the time to actually answer these things. Of course, go check them out, seriously. But hey, if you want to support my efforts in making videos like these and other ones, of course, do check out my Patreon down below, as well as all the other links that you can find there. So do let me know, what do you think? Is Star Citizen done? And what do you think of it? Ah, damn it. Having followed Star Citizen for quite some time, how, or rather, I can't read my own questions now. Right. Then, in your opinion, what would you say is the God damn it. All right. What would you say is still missing from the game? God damn it. No. No, it's not the.
Gotta
Hold
put
on.
that one in there.
No, bloopers. Maybe bloopers. All right then. And then the main question of the day is: do you? God, fucking.
Don't worry about it, man. You can always cut this stuff
all
apart.
right, this is good for bloopers then. All right.